I want to welcome everybody to our December school board meeting. At this time, I want to ask Mr. Gavin Houghton, freshman from our high school, if he would come up and lead some opening prayer and also lead some pledge of allegiance.
Right there is perfect.
You all bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, I would like to thank you for the wonderful faculty and staff we have at our school. Please lift them up along with the students and keep a protecting veil above them and guide their hearts moving forward. I would also like to ask for a smooth and easy transition of the new board members. Finally, I would also like to thank you for the board members who have previously served and thank you for their contribution to this school. Be with them and protect them as well in further years. Finally, I would like to ask for all matters and issues handled in this meeting to be taken care of in a way that benefits the students, the teachers, and the faculty, and the school best. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gavin. Next on our agenda, we have consent items, which consist of the agenda, minutes of the November 12th, 2018, and the November 13th, 2018 meetings, and an overnight field trip of the Honor Band performance January 17th through 20th, 2019 in Athens, Georgia. One item with the agenda, because of our students that are here, we'd like to move up a portion of number 11, the superintendent's reports, the East Georgia Workforce Development Challenge, up to number 5, just ahead of public participation.
Make a motion when I put it.
We have a motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Fogarty. All in favor? All right, at this time, we want to recognize our East Georgia Workforce Development Challenge students.
This group of Workforce Challenge has not only excelled, but done something that we haven't seen in a long time. And I want to not only congratulate them, but also their instructors for the time and the effort that they have put in. They have a trophy in their hand that they're going to show off here in a minute. But I'm going to ask Mr. Connor and Mr. Holden to step forward and introduce the students, talk about the excellent area that they excelled in, and then you can talk about the trophy.
Please.
I'll let you lead it off.
Okay, so I'm the construction teacher at Lincoln County High School, Dwayne Connors, and we took a group of students to the East Georgia Workforce Development Alliance Skills Challenge. And so what we do there is these kids compete against other kids from other schools in our region in construction oriented competitions. And so my group competed in carpentry, masonry, plumbing, and electrical. All pretty much residential kind of oriented. And so we had two of our students that placed this year, and I'm going to ask Zach Bowen to stand up. And Zach took second place in plumbing this year. And I'll ask Metz Leroy to stand up. Metz took first place in the carpentry competition this year.
Well, the other half of the skills challenge is metalworking, or more so welding than anything. And what we have is we have 3 welding contests. We have a beginner welder, an advanced welder, and then a welding fab team. In the time that I've been doing this is the 5th year that this contest has been going on. It has grown by leaps and bounds. We have right at about 16 different schools across the board between welding contests and construction contests. This year here, Lincoln County, they swept it. They won the advanced, they won the beginner, and they won the fab. And I've never seen anybody do that before. What they have is they have a cup for both the construction-based contest and the welding-based contest. And if your team, either construction or welding, does the best out of all the schools, and it can be, you know, a first and 2 seconds, and if that's the best overall, then you get a cup to bring home, kind of like the Stanley Cup. If you follow hockey or anything like that, it's not quite as nice. But it's still, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And this is the first year I've seen a school period, neither on the construction side or on the welding side, actually sweep it. And we took first in all 3 contests. And James Mersley, he was our advanced welder. Stand up. Danielle Gibbs, who's not here with us tonight, she took first place in beginner welding. And then Vanessa Cardella, Cole Hopkins, and Russell Calloway, they were on the welding fab team. And they took first place. In the newspaper or in the or on the school's website, they were also all awarded brand new Lincoln welding helmets. And these helmets retail for about $200 a piece, and each one of them all received a helmet. Metz, I know he received a whole bucket full of carpentry tools with his contest. And of course, that's the cup that they were presented with for getting the overall winners for the welding contest. But they all practiced, they all worked real hard. We stayed after school, and you know, there's not anything, you know, I can't say anything bad about any of them. They all worked hard and they all really wanted it. The contest for us, they were all pretty close. I think the fab team won by 4 points. The beginner welder won by 2, and I think LJ won by about 15. And you know, LJ did a great job, but the boy behind him, he made a big mistake. And that's why there was so much of a difference with them. But I mean, it was all a close contest. They all worked really hard, and you know, they're going to all advance to Skills USA contest in the region, and see how we do there. But
When is that contest?
it'll be January the 11th.
11th.
Yes, sir. Is when the region is, and then state will be sometime in March, normally around St. Patrick's Day weekend. And Mr. Leroy, he's come to the contest every year, and he can attest to how big it's grown. And it was the worst weather you could imagine this year. It was cold, it was wet. I mean, it was just nasty the whole time, and everybody did very well.
Ms. Holmes, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we the only Class A, or 1 or 2 Class A schools out of the 16 that were there?
We probably are the only Class A school. It's mostly, you got from Richmond County, they're doing a career center at Josie, Hepzibah. They both do the welding contest. They don't have construction in Richmond County. Columbia County's got Evans and Grovetown. Evans does construction and welding. Grovetown does just welding. Washington County had a group for welding. Jefferson had a group from construction. Statesboro, East and West Lawrence High School, which are in Dublin, Georgia. They were there.
Washington County?
Yeah, Washington County. Am I leaving out anybody else? But it's a big deal. I mean, it really is. And every year it's grown more and more. And they're actually looking at this next year, actually allowing some schools to come from South Carolina to come compete too. And not only do they provide a competition for us, and this is free. This doesn't cost the kids, the school, a dime to go to. And they also come in the spring, and they normally bring us a check. And you know, it's from the time we started doing this thing, it started out with about a $500 donation. Last year we got $2,000, and this helps pay for all these students to go to their region contest, to their state contest, and we do our best not to make them pay for anything when they go. They get to go, and all they got to do is worry about competing. And it's, you know, through this alliance that we're able to do these things. As part of the alliance is AGC, which is Association of General Contractors for Georgia. And R.W. Allen is a big sponsor. R.W. Allen was the general contractor on the school here. They're a big sponsor. Goldmec, which is in Augusta. It's a big conglomeration of a lot of people that it takes to help put this on and everything. And you know, it's a great thing. It's always the Thursday before Thanksgiving. If you're bored on a day like that, you're more than welcome. Anybody that shows up is welcome. They feed everybody, and everybody's more than welcome to come to it. No matter if you got a kid competing or not, and there's, you know, just tons of people down there to watch the different contests, and they have some stuff set up for kids that aren't competing to go and do. They had a crane for them to run. They had heavy equipment for them to operate, and some of these things didn't have as many kids doing them as it could have been because the weather was so bad. But it's a great opportunity for everybody, and I think they all enjoyed it. And you know, not only, you know, them winning and getting medals and prizes, but I feel like they all got something out of it that, you know, if nothing else, has made them better at the, you know, the things that they do. You know, hopefully that a lot of them are going to want to follow careers in what they did. But even if they don't, I'm sure they can still take something away from it.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank y'all.
And you know they all have finals tomorrow, right? So they need to go home and study.
Yeah, guys, if y'all feel like y'all want to leave now, feel free to. You don't have to stay for all the rest of the day. You're welcome to. So now that opens some seats up front. All right, this time we're going to move into our financials. We had no public participation on our list, so we're going to move into financials.
Yes, that's part of the consent. Okay, with 41.66% of our fiscal year complete, this is through the end of November. You can see we did get a little bit of tax money there. Hopefully we're going to get some more here in December, but we did get a little bit in November, so we are up to 32.93% of our revenues. I looked back, last year we were at 28.91% of our revenue, so I feel like we're in pretty good shape as far as comparison to last year. So we're very, very close there on what that is.
Do you want to mention that impact aid?
Yes, yes, I should mention that 66,000. The impact aid did come in November, so we have about 250,000 that we will be amending the budget for. Hopefully in January. We were already working on some amended budget figures, so we'll try to have that ready for you in January. If not, it'll be in February.
Is that the earliest that we've gotten this in?
That is, it is. February is when it normally comes out, sometimes later, so I don't know how they did that, but we certainly will take it. So, but yes, so that was a very positive note to November. On the expenditure side, you can see we're at 40.58%. Again, a few of them are a little higher than the 41.66, but everything is well in line with where they should be this time of year. We pay certain things at the beginning of the year, so nothing looks out of place on that. Excuse me. On the balance sheet, we had cash in the bank of about 1.6 million, and fund equity is 771,000. Last month it was about 708, so we are maintaining. We're not building right now, but once we start getting those tax revenues in, that will build. But you can see we did need that impact aid to help keep that up. So that is our fund equity. On the SPLOST collections, we collected $53,851.50. So comparison to last year, we're up just a little bit and definitely above last month. So that is looking good. As far as our budget, we budget $50,000 a month, so we are well ahead of our budget for this time of year for the SPLOST. On the SPLOST summary, at the end of November, we had $516,955.34 in the SPLOST fund, $257,134.65 in the bond tax. So that gives us $774,000 available for the bond payment that will be due on April the 1st. So we are slowly creeping toward that 1.1 million figure. On the capital projects, not a lot new there. The board approved the stucco repair, I believe, last month, and the iView upgrade. So we've got those approved, and we have about $52,000 available for other projects as they come up. And then we have the quarterly reports for the principal's accounts for July through September. So at the elementary school, they started with $29,752.29, ended with $52,404.23. At the middle school, they started with $38,304.58 and ended with $52,702.48. The activity accounts at the high school, which is all the clubs, $47,090.18, and they ended with $43,053.37. And the athletic account started with $53,880.72 and ended with $89,609.98.
All right, any questions on our financials? Thank you, Ms. Buck.
Yes, sir.
Next on our agenda is the Stuff the Bus program.
I think the board remembers back in May, Ms. Naomi Cobb came to our board meeting and talked about the Stuff the Bus program. And I talked with her in regards to what Faith Community Church does with their backpack program right at the start of school. And Ms. Cobb recommended that we do a Stuff the Bus program in January to resupply those backpacks. And Ms. Cobb, if you would like, you're welcome to step forward and
Okay.
tell us your wonderful idea. I think
Okay.
it's a super idea.
Good evening, good evening, good
Hello.
evening. There's a copy for each one of the board members if you take one and pass. And there's front and back. I do believe in saving trees. I'm conservative. To Dr. Light and to the board. As Dr. Light mentioned, this is also just, I only have one of those, but I just wanted to show you all that. I was here in April the 17th, and it was a vision that I had that we do a Stuff the Bus. And as Dr. Light said, he suggested that we combine our efforts with Pastor Belanger, and he was so eager to do that, and he said, let's make it happen. So today I'm back to say, this is where we are as of today. Greetings. Speaking that each of you had an enjoyable and blessed Thanksgiving holiday break. I'm sure no one's counting that you only have about a week left in 2018. I'm sure you're not counting that. After you all have enjoyed your Christmas break with family and friends, opened your many Christmas gifts, and eaten way too much, I know that's nobody here, that brings us here where we are this evening. On Thursday, January the 3rd, 2019, we will have the Lincoln County Stuff the Bus kickoff drive, starting at 3:15 to 6:15. Now this is negotiable. Dr. Light and I have talked, and so this is where we're going. But if you have some suggestions or have some other ideas, just let us know. But this is where we are. Starting at 3:15 to 6:15 p.m. Volunteer registration forms will be available. Then please mark your calendars, if you will, with save two dates. Thursday, January the 24th, and Thursday, January the 31st. Again, we have the time frame of 3:15 to 6:15. Stuff. Stuff the Bus. You ever wonder what stuff stood for? Let me tell you. S is for supplying. T is for things. U, just the letter U. F, the first F is for find, and the last F is for fundamental. So stuff. Supplying things you find fundamental. Ages 4 to 18. And we're asking for new items, if you will, or gently used ones. Don't bring us anything that you don't want or you wouldn't give to your children. Is that fair? So, Stuff in the Bus, we want to look at these items listed here: pencils, pens, notebooks, paper, spiral notebooks, hand sanitizer, highlighters, the things that your children bring home that's on their list of things they'll need to do well in the classrooms. So they're listed here, and I'll make copies for anyone else that need them. Since it is January, and I said in April, those of you that were at the meeting, we would like to also include gloves and hats and scarves and a warm coat or a jacket, if you will. Items collected will be evenly distributed and given to school counselors or other designated persons, grade level appropriate, for the Lincoln County Elementary, Middle, and High School. Volunteers with the STP, Stuff the Bus Drive, have been granted permission from Bell's Grocery Store, Goldman and Wingrove's Clothing, and Family Dollar businesses. I will be back in touch with Ms. Nicole Black on tomorrow regarding Dollar General. Her manager was out of pocket today, but she will be talking with him first thing in the morning about 10. On the back of your sheet, if you'll turn, on Thursday, January the 3rd, we will start at Goldman and Wingrove's Clothing, proceed to Bell's Grocery Store, travel to Dollar General, and end at Family Dollar. During our STP drive, there will be at least 3 drop-off locations. Here, Dr. Light said this can be a drop-off location, Lincoln County Board of Education office, the Lincoln County Food Pantry at 1066 Fire Tower Road, and Faith Community Church. Pastor Belanger said that also can be a drop-off location. This will be a win-win drive. Who's going to win? Lincoln County students, Lincoln County parents, Lincoln County educators, and Lincoln County businesses. STP goals, objectives are fourfold. We want to empower, enhance, engage, and continue to encourage our children. Help empower and enhance the students' continued learning by providing school supplies, coats for kids. Yes, I know coats is not spelled with a K, but I put that there for a reason. Coats for kids, caps, gloves, and other fundamentals. Number 2, help keep students engaged with learning and not worried about obtaining school supplies. Number 3, encourage students to stay focused on learning as they strive for excellence daily. Number 4, empower students to always reach for the sky. They may fall among the stars. And then number 5, looking forward to each of you, your businesses, and our local community partnering with us for this very worthy and worthwhile cause. We will recognize the student volunteers with certificates of thanks and more. Someone suggested football players, and I asked Ms. Bird about Junior Beta and talked with Ms. Kuhn about 4-Hers. So if those students are able to help us, we would like to recognize them at the end as well. I want to say thanks to the Lincoln County School Board for this opportunity to present Stuff the Bus plan. It was a vision in April. It's a plan now. Special thanks to Dr. Light, Pastor Belanger, Reverend Colors, and CDS Printing, which is my husband. We have a printing business. I'm not advertising, but those forms that you have and that receipt book that's going around, did you pass that, Mr. Colors? Okay. All right. So that we will have available. Someone mentioned at our last meeting they wanted to maybe make a financial donation before the end of the year. So we have that ready. If you want to do that tonight, we have you covered. And I want to thank my husband for getting those done at the last minute. Thought to ponder. I must leave this with you. There was a 6th grader. His name was Lincoln Leroy. I was a substitute teacher for Miss Burke, and I walked into the classroom as I always do, and I put a thought to ponder on the board. And I put the thought to ponder, strive for excellence to achieve a positive change. Lincoln graduated top of his class. I'm not saying that because his dad is here, because I didn't even know his dad was on the board when I found out about this. But Lincoln graduated top of his class in the 6th grade, and Lincoln stood at his 6th grade graduation and said to Dr. Randall Edmonds, I believe Ms. Arthur, was that the superintendent at the time? I think so. And Lincoln said he challenged us that one day a substitute walked into the classroom and they wrote on the board, strive for excellence daily to exceed a positive change. So as I take my seat, I would like to say, as Lincoln said more than about a decade ago, because that was 6th grade and then he graduated, he was in college, I challenge each of us here tonight to strive for excellence to achieve a positive change. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone needs that, my husband gave me about 6 tonight. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Anyone have any questions? We do appreciate what you're doing, Ms. Goff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, at this time we'll move to item number 8, grass mowing bid.
Pat Lahr and I conducted an optional pre-proposal meeting with all of the interested parties for the grass mowing bid, and I believe the board members remember that this grass mowing bid eliminated all of the chemical application. So this was just grass mowing, it was trimming, mulching, and pruning is all this is. We have someone in-house that can handle the chemicals. Pat conducted personal tours after our meeting on November 27th at 2 o'clock. That meeting was not required, but it was very informative, I hope. We received proposals up to 2 o'clock on December 6th. We received a total of 9 proposals. They were open in this room at 2 o'clock in front of everyone that attended, again, not required. Trinity Lawn was the low bid at $30,600. Murray Lawn, Garrett Enterprises, and you can see the ones that are listed. There were 3 that turned in packets, but they were not complete packets, so they were not accepted. From those bids, it is recommended for us to employ Trinity Lawn Care for mowing, trimming, and mulching and pruning for $30,600 per year for a 2-year contract, as that contract is written. And it says within the contract that it requires background checks and everything that we do for everybody on all contracts.
Any questions about this?
This is in lieu of an employee.
We have unfortunately lost a couple employees, and this is in lieu of that because our employee will be mowing the fields and taking care of just the fields. This is the area outside of the fields.
Yes, it has been difficult to, as you know, to maintain the employees that we have hired. I mean, that's been a turnover the whole time that we've been trying to do this, both for the 10-month and for the annual employee in that.
Chair.
Yes.
Question. Our previous contract, I was not on the board when you guys contracted the grass cutting. Your previous contract with the, I think it was out of Thompson, Georgia?
That's correct.
Mhm.
What was that contract? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
I believe that was a 1 year. I'm not positive. I remember the amount better, but I believe that was a 1 year to start.
Okay. I just asked because I didn't know what our protocol was on that.
And that contract included fields, didn't it?
It included fields and spraying, yes, sir. And that's where part of the problem was, because there's not near as many people that are licensed to do that spraying for commercial properties.
But we have someone on staff
That's
that's
correct.
licensed to do that, our ag teacher.
Our ag teachers.
Correct.
Is
Jason
going
Williams.
to take care of all of that, correct?
That's correct. They will take care of that for us. That's why we were able to offer it this way.
Is this just for the schools, or does it include this property here
It
too?
includes this property as well.
Wow.
In the old middle
What about the
school?
old-
The-
I was just- Same question. It does?
And the answer
The,
is,
the old middle school area, no, that is not included. But the area around it, it is included, so
Where the
that.
bus shop and.
Right,
all
that area down there is all taken care of. We actually created a Google Earth map and did it by zones and identified in the meetings and when Pat took them around, this is area that you mow, this is area that you don't mow. And we did that very
So they don't touch the
specific.
field, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Because I know it has to be done a certain.
That's correct.
Yeah. Not that they're not capable.
No, they would be, but
Yeah.
we're gonna do it.
any other
I was
questions?
just thinking that would be, with this figure, I didn't think it would include the football field. But does it include all the fields or at the new high school?
No, it does not include any of the athletic fields. none of
Okay, so
those.
just around the building?
That's correct.
And then the front where it got so high this year, it was embarrassing, right? Okay.
You are correct.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
Yes, if no more questions. We have a motion by Mr. Foley, to accept the recommendation of the superintendent. We have a second by Mr. Massey. All in favor? Unanimous. All right, next on the agenda is CCRPI presentation.
As you remember, last month, we had our Director of Teaching and Learning do the overall district presentation for CCRPI. What you have in front of you, board members, is the 5th time that the state has decided to push this back to be a beginning year or a flex year. And I've tried to put it in the terms that they gave it to us. Within every year becomes a flex year or a baseline year. If you look at that chart in the center, you'll notice that 2015 is on here, and that was supposed to be a baseline year for 2016-17. And then they moved 2016-17, and then they said 17-18 is a baseline for 18-19 through 2021. So they continue to push it back, they continue to change it. So as you try to compare last year to this year, it's really not a comparison because they're not looking at the same items and the same figures. What we have done is tried to compare to other districts around us so that it would be a reasonable comparison because they had to meet the same standards. They're not as good at it as we are, but they had to meet the same standards. Mr. Williams, I'm not sure which school, okay, there you go, elementary is first. Ms. Aycock, if you would, tell us how well you did.
Can we go to the next slide? We're pleased with the new calculation.
Bet you are.
Because it made us look better. So anyway, like you said, the calculations are completely different. So how they put the points and spread the points out changed. So you can't really compare our scores up there. The 16-17 and the 17-18 score are completely two different comparisons. But Mr. Williams pulled other school systems that are similar to our school, or other school systems based on just the race and ethnicity. Okay, next. And then there's our CSRA comparison. So we're right under Columbia County. They were 89 and we have an 82. And then we did pretty well in comparison to the other school districts and schools. And this is the breakdown of the score of an 82. You have your content mastery. Those are the tests that the children take. The ELA, the math, the science and social studies in 5th grade. We have our progress. Those are the growth points. And I know every year I always talk about that as our biggest challenge, is trying to get growth from the children, especially with 4th grade, every other grade. They compare 2 years of how kids do. So you could do really great one year and you could lose a pet or a family member and completely bomb it in 4th grade. It hurts the worst in 4th grade because they don't have 2 years to compare. They only have 3rd grade to compare. So it's been a struggle since the beginning of growth, but we're trying to always look at that and differentiate and push our kids forward. We have Closing the Gap. We actually did pretty good there. Can't get any more than 100. And like Dr. Light talked about, I don't know, I wasn't here last month, so I really don't know how much was explained, but Closing the Gaps is the baseline data that Dr. Light was mentioning. They used our 2016-17 data, test data for our subgroups, and then you got points if your subgroups grew by 3% of that baseline data. So our subgroups all ended up doing the 3% or higher, 6%. You got bonus points, except for one area. Our ELA scores went down this year slightly, and so one subgroup did not get those extra points, but we exceeded and did the 6% in some of the areas that we ended up getting 100 points because we were over in other areas that make up the difference. So we were pleased with that. And then our readiness scores, that consists of your student attendance and your Lexiles, and then beyond the core. And that's just that our kids take, all of our kids take art. So Lexiles, they have the benchmarks. 3rd grade has to meet a certain Lexile, like 670. 4th grade, I think, is like 850, and 5th grade is 970. So it's very, very high Lexiles, just to kind of help you understand. They say that's the midpoint. And so they give you points for all the kids, like say 3rd grade is 670. That's your midpoint of what a 3rd grade student should read if they're on track for college and career readiness. And to give you an example, a 650 used to be exceeding in 3rd grade, and now they're saying a 670 is just a midpoint. It's just an average. So it is really, really difficult for our 3rd graders. That's really the first time that children are not learning to read anymore. It's really, really hard. They're trying to infer and take all that information, and developmentally it's just very difficult and challenging. So but we're always pushing them, and we're actually very pleased with our students and where they are. We just think that 670 is not really a good midpoint to shoot for. But we have a lot of kids, about 50% in that area, so we earned a lot of points there. So even though it's a high score. So that's how our 82 is calculated. And then content, basically our entire CCRPI score falls on how our students test. So they love to say that CCRPI is better than AYP because it's more than just the test, but not for elementary and middle, and I don't really know high school, I haven't looked at y'all's stuff. But really everything decides that test. And so they just continue to find different ways to use that same test to come up with another category to either give us points or take points away. So you can see the last 3 years, this is what our leadership team, we created and shared with them because we just are always trying to track our content and make sure that we're growing. And so you can see the last 3 years in ELA, we have, even though our 67 is much lower than what we intended, you can see that we have made gains over the last 3 years. And math looked really well. Our science was obviously amazing, a 90. And then social studies this year was great. In 2015-16, that 81 was 3rd and 4th and 5th grade took a social studies test, whereas now 16-17 and 17-18 only 5th grade took the social studies test. So we really look at the 16-17, 17-18 right now when we're trying to make decisions about how to improve in science and social studies, and so you can see there are definite gains there that we're proud of.
Before you, back to that slide. Now, those particular numbers, I know there's tons of things that change with CCRPI, but are those numbers apples to apples?
Yes, because that's your passing and exceeding, basically. You're proficient in both. So, or develop, how did y'all do that? Proficient, Michael?
Oh, 0 for beginning, half a point for.
Okay, so you did do that calculation? Yeah, yeah. So beginning learners, they get a level 1, they get 0 points for us, and then a developing learner is what we call a level 2, and they get half a point. And then your proficient, your level 3 students get a full point. And then if you exceed the test, you get a 1.5 for us. So all of that is calculated for those 3 years, and those are apples to apples.
Good.
Mm-hmm. So we're very proud. Social studies across the state is a challenge in science, and so we're very proud of that too. So.
Thanks.
All right. And then this is just a pretty graph to show our growth where we struggled the most. Obviously math definitely helped carry the weight this year for us with the 87.26, and that's a percent of your students that had a growth percentile greater than 30. So we were 87 in math and then a 61 in ELA. So again, we're really trying to work with that reading, but it's really just that writing. It's all included in there that's so difficult for our kids. And then our climate score, this is a survey that parents can take, students have to take it, and at least 75% of your staff take this survey. They look at discipline and attendance and things like that, and they give you your climate. And so our overall score was a 95.9, and if we had been a 96, we would have been 5 stars. So we are 1/10 of a point from our top 5 stars, but that's okay. We will get that 10th point. All right, and that's it. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Freeman.
When did she say they started reading?
Start reading.
She said in 3rd grade that they're not learning
To read.
to read as much as to infer.
Reading to
and-
learn.
Into comprehension and reading to learn.
It's where they have to become independent really for the first time, and you have to take your reading and really apply it to your knowledge and go with it. 2nd grade's kind of like middle of the road. You still have a lot of children that struggle with phonics and sight words and learning to read so that they can read to learn. Whereas 3rd grade, it's you've got to read and you've got to learn from what you're reading. So.
What grade are they in elementary school? They're becoming proficient in reading?
1st grade.
it just boggles me because kids learn to read now at such an earlier age, and I'm just wondering in my mind, why is it difficult in a classroom setting?
Because it's the questions that they're asking. They're asking them to infer with background knowledge that children don't have these days. And so that's where the research is all these tablets, you're not giving your children experiences, or you're in a lower income setting, your kids don't get out and have as many experiences as other children. And so basically it's not that our kids can't read the words. They can read the words. They're actually great word callers. Their lexiles suffer when they have to apply what they've read to a new situation, or they've got to take information from two different passages and infer and make a claim and back it up with evidence from two different passages and things like that. So it's all in how questions are asked and what the background knowledge of that student is where we struggle the most.
Okay.
Good.
Ms. Arthur, you're next.
We're next, and I will just I look at that score, it makes me sick, but anyway, I can't help that the state changes things. You can go to the next slide. Moving right along. Just when we thought we understood what they were going to ask for, it changed. And that's just what happens. That's our comparisons with people that are similar to us, not necessarily in our RESA district. Okay. This is our RESA district. Normally we're around in the top 3 or 4, but we dropped all the way down to 9th out of the 13 that are there. Okay, the next one, and I'll explain to you. This is how we got our score. If you look across the top, content mastery, when I looked at that, we were 3rd in our RESA, right behind Wiltz and Warren. And you know, it was it just was not good. I don't know what I'll tell you what I think in just a minute and what we're doing. Content mastery there. If you look at it at the state average and our average, it was a little bit less than what the state is. Our progress, however, was above, and we were right there with Columbia County. We were 4th in our RESA district. Closing the gaps hurt us tremendously. This is like what Mrs. Aycock was mentioning. They changed the way they calculated it. And they look at SWD students, economically disadvantaged students, black students, white students, all of our student populations. And when you look at it and you see that you didn't get your points because you were 39/100ths of a point away from getting it, it just grinds in your stomach. We were, if you look at it's not up here, but I'll share it with you. Our white students, our target was 66.7, and our actual score was 66.31. So we were 39/100ths of a point away from getting our credit there. Our economically disadvantaged students, our target was 47.96. And we were actually at 47.13, so we were 83/100ths of a point from getting all of our credit. Then with our black students, there was a 5-point discrepancy, and then with all of our students, it was about a 3.4 discrepancy. And you don't get partial credit, and they don't round. So you can be 100ths of a point away from getting your points and not get them. And what really hurt us was our SWD population, which is our students with disabilities. Our target was 29.6, and we only got 10 points in that area, which made that closing the gap score what it is. We had a huge SPED population. Started the year out this year. I passed them on to Dr. Gunby, and he thanks me every day. And you know, those students work hard and they make progress, because if you look at our progress score, we're right there where we should be. So these students are making progress, our SWD students. They are coming to us, beginning readers, some 1st grade, some 2nd grade. And I will thank Dr. Edmond, Dr. Light, and Mrs. Aycock for saying in a principals meeting that we had, we've got to do something about reading, and if we don't catch it early, then you're going to continue to see what we see. And so were able to hire a reading teacher, and it is making a difference. You know, we won't see it for a couple more years, but it is making a difference. It is hard for ELA. They have lots of standards and a lot to cover. And so talking with school systems that score in our area that have scored better than us, I found out two things. One, they're either, everybody in the district is economically disadvantaged, which we don't qualify for, and their gifted kids are at ED and all of them, so they're all thrown into that subgroup, which makes their score higher because everybody in the school is ED, or economically disadvantaged. So that was one big difference. And the other was that our surrounding schools have a reading and an ELA teacher at every grade level, which we don't have. And they devote 90 minutes of their instruction time to ELA math every day. And we didn't have that either. So the last, I don't know, almost a month now, I probably could spit these numbers out to you in kids in my head. I was working on rosters today. We met as departments, we met as teams, and we decided that's what we're going to do. So next semester, we are extending our math and ELA time, because that's the tested areas for us in middle school, to 90 minutes. And we're going to run a skinny schedule for science and social studies. We've got it mapped out, we've taken every student in the middle schools, reading inventory, their scholastic inventory, their Lexile score, their Georgia milestone score, their progress monitoring data. We have it on a huge spreadsheet, and we work with our teachers to come up with where those kids need to be and what we've got to do. And what we realized is we do differentiate, but especially with our SWD kids and our tier kids, we've got to do more to get them up there where they need to be. It's hard when you've got somebody reading on a first, second, and third grade level to get them to a sixth grade level in a year. That's why I brag on their progress, because they do make a year and a half gain, but they can't go from second grade to sixth grade just like that. And so we're looking at all of our interventions, we're looking at talking to the teachers, getting their input, having meetings, and what we've decided is for starting in January, we will do the 90-minute ELA math and do a skinny schedule for science and social studies, and hoping that that will help with that gap and they can cover those standards and have that extra time that they need. We also have, in science and social studies, have been working, I worked over Thanksgiving break, doing paired passages and level passages for our science and social studies content standards in 6th and 7th grade to help there. They're not tested, but we still want to help that. The only grade that's tested for science and social studies is 8th grade. And then our readiness indicator was 81.6, which we did very well. We were up there at the top, second in the RESA with that. And like Mrs. Aycock said, that's attendance and beyond the core and those things. So we did well there. All right, the next slide is our data. If you look at ELA, we realize that's where we're struggling the most. It's narrative essays, and it's also what Mrs. Aycock alluded to, is it's not just reading a passage and answering 4 questions and moving on. They have to read 2 passages, compare and analyze those 2, and answer some pretty in-depth questions. They also have to write a narrative essay, and it's not about my favorite birthday party. It's putting yourself in a character's position, changing the end of the story, changing the beginning of the story, changing the setting. So it's a lot of application there. Math, we're doing pretty well there. Science and social studies, those scores that are reflected there are just our 8th grade because 6 and 7 are not tested. And social studies, that group that we had last year, this is Brian You know, she's the only social studies teacher we have in 8th grade. And she said, "Everybody's gonna know that's me." I said, "Well, it is what it is." That was a big group of our SPED population that we had there, and they struggled with standardized tests. Okay, next one. That is our percentage of students with that SGP of 30 or higher, and we're at 76.89% of our students have the growth that they need, and 61.33 in ELA. And our climate score, we have 5 stars there. And like Mrs. Acock told you, it's surveys from parents and staff and everyone. And then we have the substance-free environment, which is our students that last year was very low incidence of any unsafe situations, and our attendance was good as well. So our overall score was 94.3. So we got our 5 stars, and we were proud of that. We have a lot of work to do, but I think we are headed in the right direction as far as looking at the things that we're doing and the changes that we're going to make in January. And hopefully next year I can stand here and say they did not change CCRPI, and look at what we've accomplished is what I'm hoping for. And working toward, more than hope, working toward. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Dr. Gumby, you're last tonight.
Again, now to flip that next year, Mr. Williams, I'm gonna start off asking you a question before you ask me a question.
All right.
What is a long passage in a building from which doors lead into rooms? Anybody?
Corridor.
Somebody else said hallway. Going back to Gina's point, Ms. Acock's point, years ago with the Georgia high school graduation test, they said there was some bias on there. So that's what she's getting at. A lot of our kids just use hallways, but if you see corridor on the test, they don't understand it. And so sometimes they can read it, but they don't understand the corridor. So that's the whole point. And we're seeing that even at the high school level. So just some bias on the test, not just racial, but socioeconomic. So that is a factor on the test. So I just want you to know that. All right.
Hold it a second, I have one question about that. The idea is to expose, yeah, I see what
That's
you're
the thing
saying,
with
but I don't know anybody that calls it a quarter.
My point. But it's on the test, it was on the
But
test.
somewhere along the line, I would have read quarter and transposed it into.
But this is when they don't read it. It was not part of it. It was just in the story. Now that you had to infer a corridor, it was just assumed that people knew that that was a corridor instead of we call it hallway. Even in the hallway in the building, tell kids hallway. So,
well, given their, you know,
They
expect them to have read enough.
correct.
Yeah, okay. Because I don't know anybody that's learned from lifetime experience, unless, I mean, maybe there's folks out there that talk about quarters.
When I came to K-12 from the college, and it was a graduation test, that's all I heard was bias on that social studies and science test. And I heard it 10,000 times, and there were people who actually took that thing apart and actually found out, you know, even the word living room. Some people don't use living room, some say family room. So some of those biases of how people say things and are expected to know, but they don't know. Yes, ma'am.
Now with CCRPI, when you're teaching, let's say, a grade that has to take this test, does it come at the beginning of a year of what this will cover? For instance, does it come with, these are the words that you should be teaching, challenging students with so that they can infer? I understand what you're saying, and if they're not doing that, if they're not providing that, then there is a bias, because old school, we knew those words because we had to read the dictionary front and back. We didn't just run around and play and act like hooligans and we were poor. and the encyclopedia. So we knew those languages because that was part of educating. You just don't do it at school, you do it at home. And I understand that home is not what it used to be.
Big difference.
But parents are not the educators. Our system is. That's our responsibility. So what, and I know your report, I see it, but my thing is, out of all of you, what can we do as a board to help you help these children to do what they need to do so that our children will be successful and they will be able to infer and correlate and know all of these words? Because we can listen to your reports, but if we're not giving you the support that you need to help these students, it's a waste of my time. So I would like to know, after you finish your report, from all of you, what can we do to make a difference?
I can hit on that. Dr. E is over Title I and Title II. Those dollars can be used to buy additional software, additional workbooks for students who are struggling. And so that's what we're doing this year. This year, for the first time, the high school is actually having tutoring during the school day. So we copy that from the elementary school. We hire certified teachers to come in and pull kids from their PE classes to give them more instruction or help with ELC review or just help remediate. So this is our first time starting this, so hopefully we'll see the benefits of that. And then those kids can get the support they need and the extra help they need and remediation that they need to be successful. Not just on that test, but throughout the class, be successful in the class.
Right.
Because again, it's not just about that test, successful in that class.
Right. What about summer? We know that children lose a lot during the summer break. We know that we used to have summer programs in our school system. Would that be a help or a hindrance, or?
Middle and elementary does that. We've, of course, offered the high school students, but it's very difficult to get high school kids back here for the summer unless they fail the class in summer school. All right.
Thank you, Dr.
You are welcome. So high school comparisons against counties similar to us by race and ethnicity. You can see Lincoln County High School, of course we don't have the data, we can't compare last year, but we can see how our other counties that we compare to, and we were above them all. And I think if you look at it, I think we played them all in football, with except for Portal, I think. But yes, so we're doing well against similar counties. CSRA, down a little bit. Glasscock and Warren County and Columbia County beat us out. And of course, I don't mind stealing ideas from other counties. I don't mind calling the principals. What did you do different? Just help. I mean, was there an intervention that you used? And again, we're in this together. I think if we start to understand that we're not competing against them, we're all part of Georgia. What are you doing? And I remember a couple of years ago, Clinch County had like a 90%, and we called them, had a Skype interview with them. What are you doing to help? And we've taken some of those ideas, and I think now our math is above Clinch County, so we don't mind sharing ideas. All right. Again, I won't go back over the meaning of all of them, but I'm real proud that content mastery is still above the state average. We have some work to do with closing the gaps in readiness. We have our wall plastered in our conference room. We met just once with the leadership team, and so we'll be diving into the data to see what we can do better. Closing the gap, again, all students and all subgroups making improvements and achievement, and it talks about the flags, and Mr. Williams did a good job of that last week, so we know which flags we need to work on, which subgroup we need to work on. So we'll start that process in January, again, trying to see what we can do to get better. Our readiness is the accelerated pathway. Dual enrollment is in the accelerated pathway, AP. And again, trying to increase those numbers will help our scores increase. So now that we know what to do with this new CCRPI, it's a matter of getting it done. College and career readiness is part of the readiness group. A big factor is that those kids entering college without remediation. So we have purchased through USA Test Prep the AccuPlacer remediation, as well as SAT and the writing component, so that we can help our students be college and career ready. Graduation rate could be a little higher. Dr. Light and I talk about this a lot, and I know of 3 kids last year who came from a district, and once we accept them, they belong to us. And if they go to GED or somewhere else, they'll drop out against us. So just 3 kids, I guarantee you our graduation rate could be in the 90s. But it's just, do you take that child, you know, they come with the story, I'm going to do right this time, I promise I'm going to stay, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do, and then 3 or 4 months later they drop out. But at least we tried to help them, but then it hurts us here on graduation rate. But the beauty is we're still above the actual state average. Again, our scoring, I'm proud that the majority of the scores in 2017-18, and remember this is apples to apples, Mr. Leroy, that we did increase on the majority of them. So we are seeing those test scores go up. Ms. Arthur did send me a big SPED group, and we're interested to see if they don't make this mastery, we'll definitely look at their progress and see how much they grew over similar peers in the state. And the last slide, ELA, again, really carried us with the percent of SGPs over 30 at 81.44%, and math still above 50%, 67.63. So we're proud of the progress and the achievement, academic achievement of our students. Last slide, SAT. If you look, we were above all of the counties listed on the total score in 2018 for the SAT CSRA comparison, and the total score, reading and writing and math. So I'm very proud to say that Lincoln County High School is doing well, and I think once we incorporate the SAT component using USA Test Prep, that's going to make the scores even higher and get those students academically ready for college and hopefully get scholarships and know that they're college ready. School climate, I think for the 3rd, 4th year in a row, we're at 5 stars. And again, you heard from the principals. For us, that's kind of our measuring stick too. How are we doing with the culture of the school, the climate of the school? Do people feel safe? Are we handling discipline? How do parents feel about us? How do kids feel about us? And so 5 stars is almost like a second measuring stick for us, and we're very proud to have 5 stars. Any questions?
What percent of your students take the SAT?
Oh, it's low. I would venture to say about, Mr. Williams, do you have the number?
I don't
know. No. I would say probably 40 to 50 students a year, and that might be on the high end. And so right now we're sitting at about 340 students, and you really only want juniors and seniors taking it because they need to have that advanced math that they'll see in Algebra 2 unless they're just, you know, above everybody else. So 40, 50 students out of 2 classes, 160, 170 math teachers. 50 out of about 180, 50 out of 200 is about 25%. Somewhere around there.
Because that's a good score.
Yes. Yes.
Matter of fact, in 1100, what we used for a cutoff for honors at one point, and we had a year that we didn't have one of those, if I recall right.
The star, you're talking about the star?
Yeah,
star.
That was, what, 2 years, 3 years ago? Last year, I started student 1570?
80.
1580.
And this is out of 1600?
Out of 1600, yes.
Gee.
And that was a very competitive class, and then Lincoln's class 4 years ago, they were a very competitive class, about 10 boys, all 1100, 1200 above.
Well, shucks, I'm not proud of my 700 anymore.
That did change though.
What was the high score back then?
1600.
We also encourage the kids to take the ACT, which is a different style test, but also college accepted. So we do have students taking both of those exams. Thank you, principals, for going through that and explaining it for us, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much.
Amen.
Next item on the list is policies for review. We have evaluations, that is fine the way it's written. Granted, it is general. If we identified teaks and leaks and kind of went into some of the specificity of teaks and leaks, they would change it, and then we would constantly be changing policy. This policy identifies that we will evaluate, and all of our evaluators will be appropriately trained, and it is written general but accurate, so we're going to maintain it. Personnel hiring, excuse me, personnel hiring will remain the way it is. I will make a recommendation, the board will obviously vote on it, and this policy can remain in place, and it still has, the board does not discriminate on the basis of gender, race, etc. So all of those things are in place and necessary. So both of those will remain in place.
So there's no changes in either one?
Correct.
No questions on that? We'll move to the superintendent's reports.
The superintendent's report was obviously moved up for the students, but if I may, with as many people as we have here, I would like to thank our 2 board members that have served our board and our students very well, and they are stepping off of the board. We have 2 new members that will be in their seat in January. We want to thank Mr. Jamie Cox for his 4 years and Mr. Michael Fogarty for his 4 years. Or 8 years. I would request from the district to A, don't go away, and B, I know your stats addiction and I'll be calling you for help, so we will continue to talk. Thank you.
All right, at this time, I need a motion to go into executive session. Motion, Ms. Cox, second by Ms. Fogarty. All right, I want to call our meeting back to order. At this time, it has been recommended by our superintendent. I want to make a motion that we hire Will Homsky for the ISS Parapro position at the elementary school. We have a second by Mr. Cox. All in favor? All opposed?
Abstain.
It is recommended by our superintendent. I make a motion that we hire Ms. Elizabeth Joan Bufford to fill the position vacated by Ms. Faith Hill in her retirement at the middle school.
And that begins when, Mr. Chair?
It will begin with the second semester.
This year?
Yes, 2019. We have a second by Mr. Fogarty. All in favor? Unanimous? At this time, I'd like to second our superintendent's remarks earlier and just send my thanks to both Mr. Cox and Mr. Fogarty. It has been a pleasure working with both of you the last 4 years. I appreciate your service and your commitment to our school system.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure serving.
Thank you both very much.
Any other words you want
I
to say
have
in
one
closing?
thing left to say. I make a motion to go home.
On this note.
We have a second by Mr. Cox.
Yay.
Thank y'all very much.